Order Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During PMQs today, the honourable member for Clacton asked what I thought was quite a reasonable question, because I knew what the question was going to be, but during PMQs, I couldn't hear a single word. I'm sure people in this chamber couldn't, because people like the honourable member for Dewsbury behind me never shut up all the way through. The honourable member for Clacton was trying to ask a reasonable question. We do not subscribe to this sort of dog whistle politics in Reform UK. So, Mr. Speaker, could you please give us advice on how to stop this behaviour in the future?
What I would say is I think Mr. Farage is capable of dealing with his own battles, that we've seen on many occasions. What I would say is, look, it is about respect, it is about tolerance that we should show to each other, because what we do in here is reflected outside. So please, let us show common sense but respect for each other. A point of order, Adrian Ramsey, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At Prime Minister's questions just now, in response to my question, the Prime Minister claimed that the Green Party had made unfunded spending commitments in our general election manifesto, something that he also said in response to me at last week's Prime Minister's questions. That is clearly untrue. Our manifesto was fully costed, including through the proposals for a wealth tax that I was calling for. So please could you, Mr. Speaker, outline how I can correct the record? Should I send a copy of our manifesto to the Prime Minister?
Can I first of all say, look, I'm not going to continue a debate of Prime Minister's questions. I did end it. What I would say is, I think you have corrected it. With what you stated, it is now on the record. Right, let us move on now. We come to the urgent question. Shadow Secretary of State, Robert Jenner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Justice if she will make a statement on her plans to restrict jury trial through the creation of a Crown Court bench division and related sentencing changing.
Mr. Speaker, this government inherited a justice system in crisis, with record and rising backlogs in our criminal courts, leaving victims in limbo waiting to see justice done. For this reason, the Lord Chancellor commissioned Sir Brian Leveson to undertake a once-in-a-generation review of the criminal courts. We're grateful to Sir Brian for all his work. His report confirms that the system that we inherited is broken, and that if we do nothing, it will collapse. We welcome the ambitious recommendations he's put forward and agree that a crisis of this scale requires bold action. We must consider any measures that will put our courts on a more stable and sustainable footing. Victims and the public deserve swift justice and a court system that they can have confidence in. We will consider Sir Brian's recommendations on jury trials, along with everything else, carefully before providing a formal response to Parliament, and we will do so in the autumn. Jury trials are and will remain a cornerstone of British justice and will remain in place for the most serious cases. However, justice delayed is justice denied. The system was not designed for a scenario where there are tens of thousands of victims waiting years for justice. The Lord Chancellor and this government is committed to turning the tide on the Crown Court backlog by the end of this Parliament and creating a sustainable justice system fit for the 21st century.
Robert Jenner.
Mr. Speaker, all of us agree that justice delayed is justice denied. That is why it's so important to get control of the court backlog. No one pretends that this is straightforward, but this government has made the crisis worse. The backlog is at a record high and accelerating, with 750 cases being added every month. Sir Brian Leveson's review rightly acknowledges that we must increase the number of court sitting days, and we thank him for his work and welcome many of his recommendations. However, it cannot be right to give another sentencing discount for those convicted of crimes like burglary and stalking. This could see criminals serve as little as a fifth of their sentence when combined with the Gawk review. 20% of a sentence served. Is that justice for victims? Out-of-court settlements for drug dealers and thieves, meaning they won't even get a criminal record. It makes a mockery of the criminal justice system. And just as concerning is the proposal to scrap jury trials in many cases. The report admits that this will only have a limited effect on the backlog. It will save just £31 million, 0.2% of the department's budget. And as the report says, there is no limit to the cases for which jury trials could be scrapped. This is a slippery slope towards abolishing jury trials altogether. Now, jury trials have been a central part of our Constitution for centuries. In Magna Carta, indeed before it, they are a gift that we have given to the world. To throw them away so casually shows a total disregard for our Constitution and for such limited benefit. For too many on the government benches, it seems they want to scrap jury trials regardless of the backlog because they don't trust the British public's instincts on justice. They say judges know best, we say the public know best. It doesn't have to be this way. The government must take up the Lady Chief Justice offer of more sitting days. So, will she rule out yet another sentencing cut for criminals? Will she rule out letting drug dealers and thieves avoid even a criminal record? And does she accept that scrapping jury trials is a disgraceful and unnecessary rejection of one of our country's proudest and most ancient liberties?
Minister.
What I didn't hear in any of that was an apology. It's extraordinary to hear that the Shadow Justice Secretary has suddenly discovered a sense of urgency. Where was that sense of urgency, Mr. Speaker, in the last 14 years? The so-called party of law and order that allowed two things to happen. First, taking our prison system to the brink of collapse. That let down the public and it let down victims. Soft on crime and soft on law and order. And secondly, allowing the backlogs in our Crown courts to run out of control to record highs. For 14 years, they did absolutely nothing. Let me explain the contrast between a party and a government that is gripping the crisis and is tough on law and order. We commissioned one of their own, Sir David Gauke, to give us his review on the sentencing review. We've commissioned one of our most revered judges, Sir Brian Leveson, who today has set out his recommendations. We're not going to provide our policy response today because they demand and require seriousness, not what we hear from the Shadow Justice Secretary, but serious, careful analysis, and we will provide our formal response to this House in the autumn. But we're not delaying. We're not waiting. We're investing in the system. So to take up his challenge about what the Lady Chief Justice said